Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Future Proof, the podcast where we decode how CEOs, founders, and execs are working smarter, and they're using AI, data, and automation. And so if you're looking to future-proof your business, you're definitely in the right place. And before we dive in, if you're a founder, leader, C-suite exec, and you're feeling the pressure to grow faster with leaner teams, basically the do more with less, right, that we're all fighting. Here at Deploy AI, we're constantly developing new leading edge AI growth solutions. Our solutions don't replace your team. They make them superhuman. If you just want to learn how that you could get some time back or, 2 to 3x your pipeline, we do free 15, 30-minute sessions. The links to book are in the show notes. But let's jump into today's episode. I'm really excited to have Dave Boyce, the EVP of Product for Winning by Design. Dave, thank you for joining us.
Brent, I love it. Future proof. What an amazing world we live in where we can talk about artificial intelligence and future proofing your business. And we're communicating over satellite right now. It's a crazy world.
It is a crazy world, isn't it? It's great. We're across the country from each other and we get to do stuff like this. It's fantastic.
So good.
Yeah. So we always jump in, right, with start with leader's journey. So talk to us about your background. You've been you've had a windy road, you've been a founder, you've been a leader, right?
Yeah.
And not that you're always a leader, but every founder's journey does this, right? So tell us about yours.
How long do we have? I'll do the quick version, but we're probably about the same generation. I've been around the planet a few times, 6 to be, 57. I guess I'm in my 58th revolution.
Yeah, we're not too far apart.
Yeah. So yeah, I started, out of college, I was just a poor kid from Oklahoma, and I really never been plugged into anything that would ever be on the world stage. So I just took the best job I could get. I really worked hard. I was a strategy consultant. And then I got the break of my lifetime to be able to leverage that into Harvard Business School, which was like, what? That's a dream come true for a kid from Oklahoma. And that opened up a bunch of stuff. And I was like, man, I want to be a founder. I want to be, and this was in 1999, 2000, when everything was going crazy.
Yeah, Y2K and
yeah. Feels very much like today. If you had a heartbeat, you could get funding for a .com startup today. I mean, I say that facetiously because it's not really true, but today, if you've got an AI startup, you can get funding and, you're off to the races. But it was very, very frothy, right? And so I went and founded and joined and helped build 5 different companies and sell them. I did take some time after selling one company to Oracle and spent 4.5 years as an global executive at Oracle. I went back then, to startup land to go do another one. And then I did a slightly bigger company, inside sales. And then when we sold that, Brent, about 4 years ago, I felt really lucky to have seen all of that stuff. And by the way, some of those, we got away with some money, and some of those we got away with our life and counted ourselves lucky.
And that's every exit, right? We hear that same story. So yeah, you're no different, Dave. I love it.
Yeah. And then I just thought, I've seen some patterns, and I really have a theory on the industry. I think I see where this is going. I've seen enough. So I stepped back, started writing a book, teaching some classes. I reached out to the folks at Winning by Design. I am not the founder of Winning by Design. I reached out to the founder of Winning by Design and said, what are you guys seeing? And I became very simpatico with Jocko, who's the founder of Winning by Design, very much a pattern and framework and first principles thinker. And I was like, I would like to post up here and help decode, patterns of success and look into the future and help future founders kind of build in a way that will be future-proof.
Yeah. And you know what? I love that you're saying that. It's the whole reason we started the podcast was to try to decode, right? Talk to as many founders and figure out where the patterns are. So you're just ahead of the game, which is fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah. I love the future-proof thing. That's I'm going to steal that. I'll attribute it.
Yeah. Be my guest. Love it. So then you get to Winning by Design, right? And you're seeing these patterns. First off, talk to us about Winning by Design, and then let's delve a little bit into your book, because I think that that's also going to pique everyone's interest about the things that you've seen and where you think things are going. Because that's what
Fantastic.
everyone's worried about is everyone wants the crystal ball, right?
Yeah. Well, my call to Jocko, and I had met him before, when you've lived as many years as we have, the world becomes pretty small, especially in
Yes.
SaaS. I knew Jocko and I knew Dominique, and she was a classmate of mine at HBS. I knew some people at Winning by Design. I called him and I said, here's the insight I had. I believe the whole world has been going towards self-service for a long time, like
Agreed.
for a long time. And I ran a PLG company. I ran a sales-led company. I worked inside of various kind of go-to-market motions. And I had become convinced that the world is moving towards where the customer's in control. The stage gates are not gated and not actually gated. The customer can get information from wherever. Information is free. Access to products is free. And then we're going to opt in. So anyway, I called Jocko and I say, hey, what are you doing about, and this is 4 years ago, right? What are you doing about product-led growth? He says, why do you ask? I said, because I think the world is moving towards that. And he said, we do too.
Wow. Isn't that nice when you get that, answer on the other end, the confirmation of what you're thinking, right?
Yeah. And he's like, we don't know the timing and we don't understand how it's going to play out. And of course, we're busy working on fundamental principles of sustainable growth for mostly human-led kind of companies. But would you want to come over here and figure it out with us? And I was like, yeah, I would. Because I really like, the idea of grounding our strategies in first principles and kind of scientific thinking and math. Something that happened, obviously it happened to medicine a couple of centuries ago. It happened to manufacturing, a century and a half ago. It hadn't happened to go to market yet. Like people hadn't brought science and rigor and kind of disciplined thinking, mostly because money was being thrown at founders, during the SaaS golden age. We didn't have to think that hard. We would just spend money, growth at all costs, we'll figure it out later. Once you get to be a public company, you got to think about things like gross margin and contribution and stuff like that. But the fundamental principles that Jocko was kind of decoding, I was like, well, let me bring a self-service lens to that. And then of course, so I was able to do that. I was able to launch this book, Brent, which is on that topic. Basically, how do you build a self-service kind of go-to-market company? And all of the people that that paved the way for that, Atlassian and HubSpot and MongoDB and Dropbox and DocuSign and Twilio and like all these companies that turned into multi-billion-dollar companies. Atlassian's now $57 billion, and they still don't let their salespeople talk to non-customers. Crazy notion.
Yeah.
Like if I don't talk to a non-customer, how do I win a customer? You let them start self-service. You let them get to a certain point. Then you help them scale that success. And that's what a lot of that, I think that's going to be the future, whether it's fueled by AI or fueled by product-led growth or some combination. I believe we're trending towards that with the humans becoming advisors and strategists while the systems do the scaling work.
I agree with you, right? I think we're still kind of in that limbo land, but I think we are driving towards that. And I think when you talk about the idea of AI unlocking the metrics that enable that, I think that that's when light bulbs will go off, right? Because a lot of times the metrics they weren't there or they weren't easy to get to for founders, right?
Right.
And certainly private equity. But now I think you're going to see that. And as that becomes easier to track and easier to measure, like one of the things that we noticed is how many holes are in process, especially in growth systems. And AI plugs them, right? But it doesn't just plug them; it also measures them. It tracks, measures, improves. So to your point, that enables product-led growth faster, in my opinion.
Yeah, depends on what AI you put in, as you know. Like I'm speaking, we're both living this day to day and learning as we go. But if I put like app layer AI in, that's essentially executing a tip and trick the way that I used to, go after SEO arbitrage, or I used to add, outbound BDRs and try to scale them to kind of, you increase the number of demos. I call that kind of tip, and then I accelerate them by giving them automatic email engines so they can send out even more emails. I call those kind of tips and tricks kind of things. And AI can do that too, right? You can get AI to send even more emails, or get AI to make outbound phone calls, or get AI to, and that's great. But you're talking about something more fundamental, like, hey, let me actually see where the holes are in that customer journey and in that the lens. It would be more like our go-to-market process.
Right.
That is cool. Once you have that codified, normalized, and you can see it, then yeah, I can run experiments. I can see which ones work and which ones don't. Some are accelerated by AI, and then I can keep the ones that work and deprecate the ones that don't. But I have a very clear view of how I'm running those experiments. And I believe that is going to take us into, if you think about what happened to lean manufacturing, I think that's happening right now to go to market.
Yeah. And it's, I think to your point earlier, right? This has been an untouched thing, and it's kind of been a haphazard, right? People, they have frameworks and stuff, but nothing like you're talking about, which is making growth a mathematical equation that that you can constantly experiment with, tweak, test, right? And you've seen that in other parts of businesses, whether it's the funnel, it's your back end, it's your onboarding, all that stuff has had that to some degree. But go to market, really, it's been hey, you're either in B2B, you're running outbound, to your point, right? Whether it's cold email or outreach in some other way, or if you're in SaaS or you're in consumer, you're running paid ads and you're just tracking, hopefully, the funnels, but it's all disconnected, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to understand those metrics. But now what you're talking about at that layer of doing it from end to end, you really can start to have the consumers or the clients or the customers start in that self-service mode and move up, right, the ladder with, through the advisory stuff that you're talking about. And I think that would excite a ton of founders, especially in the SaaS world.
And I think you said your audience is a lot of people listening right now are founders or
Yes.
or
In the
early stage
SaaS world,
executives.
yeah. Right now across the industries, but I think we do have a lot of SaaS folks as well.
Yeah. So if I'm in that space, which I am, and you are, and hopefully most of our listeners are, I'm like, wait a second, what is happening over there with Replit and Cursor and Lovable? Right. How are we getting to 10, 20, 50, $100 million without scaling my people? Like how are they doing that? Maybe some people listening know how they're doing it because you're doing it yourself, which is amazing. But there's a way to scale, like in using systems and not people, that is being demonstrated right now. Cursor just announced they got to 500 million in ARR with less than 100 people. Okay, how the heck do you do that?
Right.
Does that mean I can switch my company to an AI native GTM right now, depending on the scale? Probably not. But does it mean there's something to learn about systems thinking and about automation? Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to how your idea or your platform, right? Like if you take Cursor, how it simplifies their life, but it also takes complexity out of the equation. You couldn't do that, right, before AI. Now things can happen so fast and you can make the complex simple. And when you do that, I think that those systems now enable what you just said. Yeah.
Yes. And that's just what we all want, we're buyers,
right?
At some point you signed up for the platform we're using to record this right now. You wanted that to be simple. This morning I used a product called bill.com to adjust an invoice for someone. I want that product to be simple. I don't want to have to schedule a call every time I get confused or every time I need to onboard to a new thing. I just want it to be simple. And that is indeed what removes friction and gets us to the velocities we're talking about right now.
Yeah, no doubt. So you're kind of hitting on things that are probably going through a lot of our founders' heads. So talk to us about your book's coming out pretty soon. Talk to us, about some of the other highlights that you're seeing, because obviously you're seeing the shift, right? And I think a lot of people would agree. Wow, I got to figure out where I am in that journey. But is the book more framework based or story based? Like, what are you trying to tell people about how to get to product-led growth?
Oh, thank you. So it is framework based, and this is why I'm so simpatico at Winning by Design, because Winning by Design is all framework based. I tell stories because we all learn through stories, but then we root it back into kind of foundational thinking frameworks that I can then apply to my business, like first principles thinking that I can apply to my business. And some, in the product-led growth world and in the AI-led growth world, the Lovables and Cursors and Replits of the world, there are a few things that they're first principles that work exactly the same. One of those we've already talked about, which is I need to instrument my my platform so I can tell when people are running up against friction and when they're not. Like those metrics become telemetry for me to tune my business. We already talked about that. Another one that we didn't talk about, well, we kind of did when we talked about simplicity, is empathy. It's a weird word to bring up, in a technology company,
Yeah.
But we really need to have empathy for that customer who has a job to be done, who wants to accomplish it, and who might hire my product to help her get that job done. I really got to understand that. And then I got to meet her with a level of generosity, which also gets to the simplicity thing. Like if I have empathy for the situation in which she finds herself where my product might help her, and then I'm generous in providing an easy to use solution, and I'm not trying to shove my interests in there. Like sometimes that complexity is a unforced error, Brent. Like,
Right.
oh, you want to renew? Good. Then I'd like to talk to you because that might be a good time to upsell. Well, I don't want to talk to you. Like just let me click and renew, just make it easy. If we can channel empathy and we can channel generosity, and then we can instrument the product so that we can tell what's going right and what's not going right, that gives us the chance to scale with systems and not humans.
I couldn't agree more. And I definitely think that is probably nirvana for lots of people listening. Sure. Right. Like, and so the next question is, all right, Dave, how do I get there?
Right.
Or how is there a roadmap for me to get from where I'm at today to there?
Yeah, I get that question all the time, and it's a really fun question. It's and you don't have to do it all at once. The good news is you don't have to do it all at once. Like if these principles are resonating with you, and in other words, if you're a human,
yeah, exactly.
And and you've got business challenges too, and there are ways to kind of work your way into this. Like even in a human-led go-to-market, I've had these conversations. Does empathy play a role? Yeah, it does. Like instead of me showing up and telling you all about my product and its features and its benefits and its cost and functions, how about me showing up and asking you about your situation and your pain and whether there could be an additional impact that I could make on you? Like that's just flipping into an empathetic mindset, but we can program our humans to act that way too while we are automating and simplifying the systems pieces of it.
Amen. I love that. Love that. And so as you start to look down the road, right, the next 18 months, because the smart people out there are going to be looking at Cursor, Lovable, and those models, right, and Replit, and thinking about, hey, how can I move that way?
Yeah.
What else do you see, right, on emerging tech like AI driving change? Because and I'm sure from the clients you talk to, because we see it all the time, is a lot of them are lost and they don't know where their right use case is, and they don't know where to start.
Yeah,
and it becomes overwhelming. When an overwhelming garage door comes down, it's like they shut down. But they also know that they can't shut down for long because it's changing so fast. So as you look down that next 18 months, what do you see and where do you see the opportunities in the industry's change?
So if you don't mind getting a little technical, it sounds like you're asking to maybe get a little technical and tactical for a second.
Yeah.
It depends on the scale of your company, but I want to do two things, and I do not want to get I don't want to get frozen kind of and take no action because of how overwhelming it is. Don't worry about making mistakes. The mistake would be to do nothing. That would be a huge mistake. If you miss a slow train, okay, maybe you can, hop in a cab and catch it. You miss a fast train, that's going to be a big mistake. And AI is a fast train. And all of this kind of go-to-market innovation, it's a fast train. So we just want to get on the train in some way. And I think there's kind of two things that I want to do. One is, and this might take a little longer and it's fine, we don't need to do it all at once, but I do want to get that foundational measurement kind of data structure in place so that whatever experiments I'm running, I can measure them. It makes no sense to run an experiment that you can't measure.
Yes.
It makes no sense. So I do want to get that foundational data layer in place. And that might take some infrastructural and thought work. Okay, got it. Then I want to run experiments and just pick one, Brent. I mean, just pick one. Like Winning by Design just published a whole set of research, 8 different areas in the customer journey that are being enhanced by AI, from marketing all the way through to renewal and expansion, including some fundamental underlying things like pipeline management and intelligence. There is stuff going on in every single one of those 8 spaces, and week to week advances are being made. So there are vendors out there that can provide you with an agent, for instance, that can automatically qualify inbound demand. Great. We've all heard about that. Those are the AI SDRs. They're not perfect. There's an agent out there that
right. But they, like you said, but they might be able to help you offset 80% of the grunt work and make your team that much better. But yeah, keep going.
There you go.
Yeah.
And there's AI that can harvest all the signal that you already have and tell you which of your existing customers are most likely to be external advocates. You could turn them into pipeline generating advocates versus which ones can be just automatically sent ahead on an auto renewal path versus which ones need some special attention. Well, where does that signal live? It actually lives in these conversations. It's unstructured data that comes from a live conversation between humans or an email conversation between humans. But I got to pull that out of my call recordings. I got to pull that out of my email exchanges. And I can do that in an automated way and not rely on the sales rep or the CSM to fill out a field in CRM. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I can do that can unlock growth, streamline the process. I just need to pick one and get started.
I love that. And I think that if you're a CRO or someone that's doing founder-led growth right now and listening to this, I think the light bulbs are going off because it's funny, Dave, my partner Chase and I, when we get on with our clients, it's always about that same thing, which is how do we help them understand that there are severe bottlenecks all across those. I had it at 4, you have it at 8 stages, which I even like even better. And there's holes in each one, and almost none of those metrics are tracked, right? Speed of engagement and follow-up velocity and follow-up cadence, and a lot of them they don't track any of this. So how do you improve it? Like you said, if you're not tracking it and measuring it, how do you manage and improve it? Right?
It's shocking. It's shocking that we ever did it in any other way. But I understand because we had money sloshing around, and we could just paper things over with money and humans, and and take people at their word, when they're telling us how things are going in their pipeline. We don't have money sloshing around anymore, and we do want to automate. And so, here we go.
And to your point, you can't just throw bodies at it anymore because it doesn't fix the problem. Early days, absolutely, you could do that. But 1, we're coming up against talent shortages, right? So everyone's fighting for resources. But 2, the landscape is more competitive, right? And as my favorite quote but from Alex Hormozy is, the new currency is eyeballs, right? It's not money. It's not some of the other things that we're used to. It's how do you get attention to your product? And to me, you have to systematize. And that's why I like what you're doing with product-led growth. I think it is where everything is trending. And we've seen that through we're close to 200 podcasts now. And that information that we're extracting is so valuable, to your point about where the problems are. But the ones that keep resurfacing are the things you're hitting. Go to market is broken across the board, especially in B2B.
Yeah. It's amazing. I was on stage in front of, I think, about 100 CEOs 2 weeks ago. And I said the following, and you should have seen people you should have seen them. They're 50 million and above kind of ARR CEOs. So maybe a little further along than some of our listeners. That's fine. But I said, what got us here, like everyone in the room has this job because you're the best in your industry.
Yeah.
And what got you here, what got us into this room together, the plays that we ran, the skills that we, that we developed, the tactics and playbooks are not working anymore. And they're not going to get us from here to the next phase. And everyone just went white because I showed some examples of how on average, on average, growth rates have halved for the SaaS. And we're paying 1.6 times what we used to pay, even for the growth that we are getting. And we can't just do more of what we used to do. What we thought is when we got to this place, in our careers, that would be teaching the next generation how to do it like we did.
Right.
Not true. Because how we did it is not what's going to get us forward. So
the playbooks
we're
are
at
all
a
different
really
now.
crucial moment right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. God, I could talk to you for hours. Dave, we're going to have you back when your book launches because there's so much more we can cover right around this topic. And this is exactly why we hold this podcast, is make it a tool for founders that are saying, hey, how do I figure out what's going on? And it's for the books are great, right? But the books have to be followed up with interviews like with the authors, because I think they need action plans. And how do I take that what I see, what Dave just said, right? And how do I put it into action in my company? And I think that that's why we're going to see more and more founders bringing in advisors, right, to help them because they can't keep up with it. Honestly, I tell the story all the time. The reason I started the podcast was our clients were saying, hey, what are other founders doing? Right. And bringing experts on like you to say, hey, look, here's how the landscape's changing. Because you have to talk to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
To understand where the patterns are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. It's super helpful. If I were a founder, if we had a founder right in front of us, which we do virtually, what I would say is speed. Like, do not sit around waiting. You can actually beat the incumbents to this GTM strategy. If you act with courage, just act with courage and act with speed. It'll be on that incumbent to try to future-proof themselves before you can show the way. And I guarantee you can move faster than they can.
Amazing. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, for sharing your insights. Like I said, I'm definitely going to have you back when the book launches. We're going to go through that, but tell everybody how to get in touch with you guys at Winning by Design. We'll have all the links in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Well, just winningbydesign.com. It's really easy to join our mailing list. You start getting pulled into the family. You get research and stuff. If you're ready, you can subscribe, which is more of a kind of advisory contract where you actually get access to experts on a regular basis and you get the core frameworks. But look, we'd just love to have you in the family. My book is called Freemium, and you just Google Freemium. It's available for pre-order right now. And I'd love to come back on, Brent, when it's out and talk some more about it.
Heck yeah. There's no doubt, right? I'm definitely going to have you back. Guys, this is exactly why you need to continue to watch. It's not from me. It's for having people like Dave to show where things are going and where the puck is going. Everyone wants to know the old Gretzky thing about, hey, just tell me where the puck is going. But you certainly don't want it to go in the wrong direction. And the whole point of this podcast is to steer you in the right directions and make better decisions to grow your company in a smarter, faster, and more AI-driven way. And it's not about, being AI with a feature. This is about how do I use it to empower us to make the shifts that are necessary to keep up. And just like you said, Dave, the playbooks are all completely different. What got you here is not going to get you there. And so I think that is that if you have one takeaway, if you're watching this, it's that. So Dave, thank you. Really, really appreciate you being on today.
Beautiful. Thank you, my friend.
Hey guys, that wraps up this episode of Future Proof, where we continue to bring on the best and brightest to empower you to change and grow your company. So we'll see you on tomorrow's episode. Thanks, guys.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.